Please
Hi.
announce yourself.
Hello?
Yes, Dana.
Dr. Jeffries?
Yes, yes.
Yes. I was
We
wondering, I'm
got,
like, oh my God, I hope he didn't forget.
no, but we got caught up in emergencies. I got supposed to take my buddy to the doctors. I said, look, I got to do this program. He says, I'm coming back at 1:30. If you're not there, I'm going without you.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
God.
All right, you need you an assistant because you're busy. All right,
And,
so
and, and,
thank you for being on my show. I kind of started talking about Juneteenth, but I definitely want your input. So, can
yeah.
you just give a definition of what is Juneteenth celebration?
Well, Juneteenth celebration is important for all of us. Um, June 19, 1965 was
1865.
when, I'm sorry, 1865 was when the complete black population in America that had been enslaved was free. Now, we need to understand how important this history is. There was an Emancipation Proclamation issued by President Lincoln. He's known as the president who was the emancipator. In other words, he freed the enslaved black people. And so this Emancipation Proclamation was issued, I believe, in September '63, but to take effect, it was to take effect
January 1st,
January
1863.
1863. But what had happened was that affected most of the black people enslaved throughout the South, and some were enslaved in northern, relatively northern states such as Maryland and whatnot. But what happened was a the Southerners in Texas, which was the largest state and under enslavement, the Southerners they said they would not let their slaves know and announce it, and they for almost 2 years the African people in Texas were kept in enslavement, even though officially across the nation slavery was over. And so this shows the difficulty of living in America, the contradictions, the conflicts. You have to stay on the case and fight and make sure things are right. So Juneteenth lets us know that even though we think that the government has done the right thing, and even though we're celebrating what the government has done, you have to be vigilant. You have to keep your eyes open because they may not implement it properly. And this is the history of America. They put things on the table, such as the Declaration of Independence, and that's 1776, which says all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, all men does not mean all men. It does not mean black men. And in point of fact, it does not mean all men in the sense of all humanity. It does not refer to white women. So what we had in the Revolutionary period, in the 1776 period, was an ideal that all men should be equal, but it wasn't the reality. Some men were poor and they didn't have rights. Women might have been wealthy and they didn't have rights. These are white people. And certainly the Native Americans didn't have rights, and we were on their land. And black people who were working the land and making America wealthy, they didn't have rights. So in the Revolutionary War period, there was a contradiction. There was an ideal, but the reality was enslavement. And then we had the Civil War. That was supposed to end slavery.
Well,
The
okay, can you
13th
stop
Amendment.
right there for a second? Because initially the Civil War was not to end slavery. Wasn't it because the Union wanted to change from farming to industrialization? And then they added in slavery so they could get, black people to join the Union Army. It's like the initial purpose of the Civil War was not necessarily to end slavery, but it ended up being that.
Yes, the uh, Southerners rebelled because they wanted to maintain the control over the slave system that had made them wealthy. the Northerners fought them because they were seceding from the Union. So it was a question of maintaining a union. And the key issue, however, with the North and the South fighting each other, white people trying to keep who's going to control these United States.
Right.
The key issue was what's going to be the lot of black people. And black people became the key because once they were given the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, it really was a war measure. It was designed to arm black people officially as part of the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Army. And so black people joined. They were glad to be a part of the fight against slavery. So instead of it being just seceding from the Union, it now became a fight over slavery. And the presence of hundreds of thousands of black troops officially and hundreds of thousands of black men unofficially being laborers and spies, and black women like Harriet Tubman being nurses in the war. Black participation helped to save this United States Union.
Right.
And so we were rewarded with the 13th Amendment ending slavery, the 14th Amendment in 1868 giving us citizenship rights, and the 15th Amendment in 1870 giving us the right to vote. But all of those things were on the table, but they were not the reality. You have to stay on top of things to make sure that they are carried out in the proper way. And so the Juneteenth represents that. Although slavery was officially ended, at least the desire to end it with the Emancipation Proclamation, and then officially the U.S. government ended it with the 13th Amendment in 1865, the reality was that when people locally in the various states and various communities controlled the flow of information and the official carrying out of government business, many people were willing not to let black folks know that these laws were passed, and they kept them in the dark on it, and they kept them enslaved. And the biggest example of it was Texas, the most important slave state, hid the freedom of African peoples officially, part of the U.S. government action. They hid it for 2 years plus. And so that shows that we have to stay vigilant. We have to understand what government is all about. We have to understand people wanting to victimize other people. And the perfect example of that victimization is the native population on whose land this nation was built, and their land was stolen, and they have never been properly compensated for it. And the land that was stolen from the Native Americans was worked by black people. It was their strength and their genius and their skills. They were the wheelwrights. They were the carpenters. They were the blacksmiths. They were the people in the fields. They were the nurses. They took care of business to help make this nation wealthy. And so we have to understand people want that wealth, and they want us to help them, but they don't want to give us our full rights. So we have to struggle for the full rights. We have to do it today as our grandparents had to do it yesterday, and our great-great-grandparents had to do it the day before, and our great-great-great-great-grandparents had to do it before that.
Right.
So Frederick Douglass, who was an enslaved African in Maryland, he escaped from slavery, and he became a leader of the abolitionist movement, the movement in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and the 1800s to end slavery, and Douglass participated in that. He said that black men were willing to fight in the war to help America stay a unified nation, especially if we get our freedom. And so Douglass is a symbol of that struggle for freedom. And his great saying was, if there is no struggle, there is no freedom.
So how long do I have you for this afternoon? How long do you have?
Well, the brother came and he left. So his car is gone. I was supposed to be ready at 1:30, but he's gone. So I'm here. I'm here at least until 2.
Okay, good, because that's when the show's over. Okay, so I just want to trace back briefly, quickly, because everything that you're saying and everything that I said in the beginning of the show, the intro of the show, we're talking about public policy. And
Yes.
what I don't, what mind boggles me, I'm not an expert in public policy, but I'm educated more so than the vast majority of people my generation and younger. They have no clue the importance of knowing public policy. So, in history right now is repeating itself in Texas. And, with the immigration, children are being separated from their parents. So with that, I want to ask you, is history repeating itself? And is really us doing the damage of not educating ourselves on the correct history of public policy that is still in effect today?
Well, history often repeats itself. And so that's why you need to know history. But with us, we've learned to expand history, which is the unfolding of life and on the planet. We have to break that history down, split it up into two words. History is the world and the activities that are around the world. But I break that thing down and I separate it into his, and then new word, story, story. What we really learn in the miseducation in the classes and in the general culture is his story, the story of rich white men with property and power. We don't learn the story of the human family, which is history. So that's an important distinction we need to make. We are ruled by his story. The activities of the President of the United States currently, he's trying to be a one-man show ruling the U.S., not worried about Congress, which is broken up into two bodies, the Senate, where there is a two-person representation by each state, and the House of Representatives, which is based upon population. So there are 400-plus members in the House and 100-plus members in the Senate. Those are the representative legislative bodies. They make the laws. They determine how the laws are going to be carried out with public policy. So what we're trying to say is we got to wake up. We can't just wake up in the morning half awake because we done had some unnecessary drugs the night before. We can't wake up in the morning and not doing what we need to do to get our minds and our bodies together, eat the right food, start thinking the right thoughts, doing the exercises, and getting ready to move through the world with power. But the most important thing is your mind. Stuff that you eat and stuff that you drink and stuff that you smoke and stuff that you snort affects your mind. It may give you a high, but that's going to leave you short on the ability to do what you need to do for yourself. So systems analysis is what we're trying to talk about. Everything is a system related. Systems impact on things. Public policy is made by the political system, and it can come from the state government or the city government or the federal government or the international government, such as the United Nations.
Right.
So
and they can be full of it too.
Well, every branch is full of it because some people are going to get control of it and make it do their will as instead of the glorious thing, all men are created equal. That sounds good, but the reality is that some men have ability to get more power than others. They're born with it, or they've stolen it, or they've killed for it. And so you have to be prepared to struggle. You have to organize around struggle. You have to form the groups that are strategic to help you win. First and foremost is your group, meaning you. So you have to have your mind, body, and spirit ready to move. You can't have your mind messed up with wrong thoughts and drugs. You can't have your body dysfunctional because you're not conscious of how to strengthen yourself. And you got to have a spiritual understanding that you are part of a larger universe. And so systems, getting economics, politics, and culture hooked up together moves the world. And so
hold that. I'm sorry.
That the white man has a system, he's going to make it work for himself, and we have to be continually vigilant.
hold up for a second because someone in my chat room, I'm not gonna say his whole name because you're here, but Sweet Willie, that's what I'm gonna call him. He says history don't put food on my plate. So let me just say this because we're not giving you a history lesson or a history class today. No, and this is what people have to just empty their mind and understand to fill out with proper knowledge. We're talking about policy, and public policy controls how much food you are allowed to put on your plate. Am I correct, Dr. Jeffries?
And not only that, public policy is determine how much you're going to pay for the food.
Exactly.
Public policy determines who's going to distribute that food. Public policy determines whether that food is going to be poisoning or whether that food is going to be protected by laws that said you cannot put illegal, rotten stuff in the food and then circulate it. You ain't got no farm. You ain't producing nothing. You're not growing anything. You ain't cutting nothing down off no trees. You're not getting no fruit from. You're getting it through the system of economics that's controlled by public policy. So you can say history don't mean a damn thing to you, but history will kick you in the ass if you don't understand it properly and don't move out the way and take the right precautions that you need to take. So you become a part of history, and history does not run over you.
And he says, I thought money decided what we buy, not policy. Okay, again, empty your mind and fill it up with proper knowledge. Public policy controls how much money you make. It controls if you are going to be employed or not, if you're going to be an entrepreneur. It controls how capitalism works in this country. If you do not understand public policy, go and read a book on public policy, and you will understand
but even that. Sister, and even that needs to be explained. Public policy is decided by organized bodies, often elected bodies, sometimes important bodies of people. Money that you think is money ain't nothing but a piece of paper.
Right.
It may say $1,000, but it don't mean nothing. Public policy determines whether that $1,000 can actually be paid to you in significant wealth. It's just a piece of paper, $1 bill, $10 bill, $20 bill, $50 bill, $500 bill, $1,000 bill. That's determined by public policy. And so we have to understand how things operate in a greater detail. Nobody's trying to put anybody down. I'm 81 years old. I've lived on this land. They told me I had a house that was worth $500,000. I didn't determine that. Public policy determined that. But when they wanted to tax this house to the tune of $10,000 a year, I couldn't say, wait a minute, this is my $500,000 house. You ain't taxing me. Yes, you are. And if you do not pay the taxes, they'll come and snatch your $100,000 house and then put your ass in jail, and your family is on the street, moving in with other relatives.
So I want to move on to state of America / the world. What do you think where's the state of America is right now, and also the world as a whole? Like, where are we? What is the state of America right now?
Well, the state of everything is changing. Everything's in flux. You're breathing air in, and that's producing changes within you. If you don't breathe in the air properly and your lungs don't process it, and that air doesn't get into your blood, and that air doesn't get into your brain, you dysfunction and you die. So change is taking all the time. And you can breathe air, and it can go through the process of getting into your body and getting into your bloodstream so that you can function. But if the air you breathe is poisonous, then the functions and the changes that's supposed to be happening to you are going to be negative. So systems, relationship, and whatnot is really what we're talking about. Changes are happening every day and in every way. So there's changes locally in your town, and locally in your state, and locally in your region, if you're from the West Coast or the East Coast or from the South or the North, and internationally. There's changes taking place now in America, a big thing between Mexico and the U.S., and people wanting to come into the U.S. to work and to get a better life. And so they're being stopped at the border, public policy, and they're being little children who are the innocents are being victimized. Public policy. Change is going to take place where? At several levels. It's going to change. Change is going to be in the state level. Change is going to be in the local level where the policy is implemented, carried out. Change is going to be in the governmental level, at the national level, and change is going to be on the international level. There are international laws, international obligations that affect you. We're talking about a policy in relationship to who fishes in the seas. There are controls. You can't just do anything in the sea. There are the air. Who produces a factory, and the factory produces what they call toxins, poisons, and sends them up into the air, and people got to breathe that. So there are policies that affect people across countries and across continents. So there's a whole world out there, a whole universe that we need to be aware of, and we need to find the best way for us to function in it.
Right.
So we're talking to our friends and out of love and respect, and to you who are listening to us, to wake up. This is a warning call. You need to know as much as you can know, so that you can do what you can do to protect yourself and your family, and you can grow. But money is the root of all evil, not because the piece of paper that represents money is evil. Money is the root of all evil because of the mind of the person who's looking at the money and who's going to use it. He could use it to build something, he could use it to buy something, or he could use it to put something in place to kill other people, organize a gang, rip people off, take their homes, mess and kill their people. It just had a thing in New Jersey where they had a festival to celebrate Juneteenth and these other activities, and some two fellas started shooting. 22 people got shot. Luckily, only one got killed, who was one of the gunmen. But see, we need to open our eyes and act on what we see and feel in an intelligent way, and not worry about everybody acting on us. We have to organize for power, organize in order to do the correct thing, and look in the mirror and see what you see. And if you don't quite like it, start doing some changes. And if you do like it, and it's doing the right thing, you can, move with it. But if you're looking in the mirror and you don't see what you like, and you may be too dark, and that you don't like, so you may decide to bleach yourself up, or you may look in the mirror and you got nice, short, natural hair, but then you want that type of hair that you can shake out and wave, so you go buy yourself some hair, and you go buy yourself some hair, and then you can shake it out all you want. But you better have under that hair, no matter whether it's your natural hair or whether it's the hair that you done bought, you better have a mind that's thinking and can help you from being destroyed and help you grow. Yeah, knowledge is power.
Yes, knowledge, the proper knowledge is power.
Proper knowledge is good.
So, all right, just to swing back on the Juneteenth celebration, and I have a question after I make this statement. When you look at Puerto Rico, the travel ban, Charlottesville, what's going on at the border right now is separation policy, basically, disenfranchisement. All too familiar with black... Hold it. You're moving too fast. Disenfranchisement. That sounds like one of those big words that white folks use. Break that down. Disenfranchisement, which laws pass to discriminate against us, people of color, particularly black people, which makes us not be able to progress in society. So my complete statement was, after June 19th, June 19th, 1865, black people did make a lot of effort to where, we created communities, we created our own banking system, we created, we went to
across the country.
Yes,
across the country.
Across the country. We were in Congress, we were elected until, because it was the 40 acres and a mule. And that, you put about election and we're in Congress. So we were enfranchised. Yes.
In other words, we participated in the voting process. We were given the right to vote. So we were
We help create laws.
enfranchised. We
Yes.
elected people to Congress, to the Senate. We elected people to the state legislatures. We elected people to be
Until,
mayors.
right, and W.B. Du Bois always said that we sat 10 years in the sun until that was receded by, who was it, Andrew Johnson, the president that took over for
Right.
Lincoln.
The president, who was a Southerner, Andrew Johnson, he decided to disenfranchise us. We came out of slavery. We started moving. We started getting land. We started getting our families together. We started businesses and whatnot. We were moving so fast, probably the fastest of people in the history of the world for those 10 years, from 1865 with the end of slavery and whatnot to 1870 or 75. We moved faster than any other people because we knew what it meant to not have freedom.
Right.
But
So,
then
wait,
the
okay,
people
so
who didn't want us to progress came in with the disenfranchisement,
yes.
taking the vote away from us, taking political power away from us, messing with us.
Ferguson
And so
versus
that
Presley.
process is going on even today.
Yes. So the question is, I want to ask, if we were never disenfranchised, how advanced would Black people been today if we were never disenfranchised in 1875? If we were still allowed to be enfranchised?
With the skills and the whatnot that we have, with the strength and the endurance that we have, with the ability to survive even the worst devastation, we would be at or near the top. I'm using an example in my personal life. My grandfather was born in 1868. That's the 14th Amendment that gave us the right to be citizens. His brother Sam, older brother Sam, was born in 1865. That's the 13th Amendment. That ended slavery. My grandmother, his wife, was born in 1870. That's when we got the 15th Amendment, the right to vote. So those three parts of U.S. history, the 13th Amendment ending slavery, the 14th Amendment making us citizens, the 15th Amendment giving us the right to vote, helped us have a pathway to enfranchise ourselves and fully participate in the society. And we showed we could do it. Even though some of us didn't have education, we knew the importance of education. We built schools in log cabins. We set up a learning process where people could go out and teach each other. We pushed for policy, for public education. Public education comes out of Black people after 1865 saying we need schools. And then the poor white people said, well, wait a minute, we need schools too. So our thing was everybody needs schools. And then not only need schools in the public school where you teach your ABCs, we said we need higher education schools. We need schools that teach skills like Tuskegee University, teaching you how to be a wheelwright, a carpenter, an electrician, a mason, etc. And then some of us said, wait a minute, we need schools that teach us higher education to become doctors, lawyers. So that period of 1865, the end of slavery, to the next 10 years, 1875, that's when Howard University was established in 1867. That's when Spelman College for the Women was established in 1868. That's when Morehouse was established. That's when many of these Black schools that are training our people now were established. Public policy, enfranchisement that we had in our hands, we said, we want something. And we said, not just for us, make it the public for everybody. So white people benefited from our struggle. And then when white folks realized, the powerful white folks, how strong these Black people were, and they were strategic between the balance of power between the Republicans and Democrats, then they began to play games with us, and they disenfranchised us. They took the vote away. And then we lost our seats in the Congress. We lost our seats as the mayor. We lost our position as the sheriff. And since 1900, when they successfully accomplished our disenfranchisement in the South, since 1900, we've been struggling every day to get back our power. And that's the great civil rights movement, the great struggle for the vote, all of that.
Okay, so before I let you go, just one last question before you exit out. Where do we go from here? You know, is it hope for Black America? Where do we go from here? in
Yes,
today's.
certainly. If my grandfather, born in 1868, 150 years ago, 1 foot out of slavery, he became a leader of his community. And they built schools. They built their homes. They had their farms. They formed their social organization, their political organization. He was the head of the Masons. So they knew that you had to get men and women together for power. If he could do that, crippled by slavery, have 13 kids, and his brother had 15 kids, and those folks have had kids, and my father was the last of the 13 kids. If they could do that without what we got today, then we need to wake up. We have schooling, we have jobs, we have skills, we have bank accounts, we have organizations, and it's up to us to pull the right policies together we can fight for, the right organizations, pool our money, save our money so we can develop and build our own communities. And we have examples of that, but all of that has been hidden from us. So he puts his story in place instead of history, and so we think that we have to wait for him to do something. We are dependent upon him. No, we have the power to function fully, and when we do it collectively, not just in America, but worldwide. And so Frederick Douglass said it best. If there is no struggle, there's no progress. This is a man who was enslaved, fought his way out of slavery, and became a great leader. He went on to say,
But actually, his wife helped him get out of slavery. His black wife.
That's right. He was able to become a great leader in ending slavery. His 2 children fought in slavery with the Massachusetts 54th Regiment heroically. But what he said, as this former enslaved person who fought for his freedom, if there is no struggle, there's no progress. If you think you can sit on your ass and things going to happen, that's a big question mark. You got to be ready to organize yourself and others, your family, your community, so you can struggle to make progress happen. Those who profess the faith of freedom, in other words, those who talk about freedom, but who do not want to have action, are men who want the crops without plowing up the ground. They want the rain without the thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one. It may be a physical one, but it must be a struggle. Why? Because power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did. It never will. When you organize yourself, you got to organize yourself to make demands, and make demands on power. And then once you have organized demanding of power, that power may be presented to you if you are strong enough in it. And so we have to understand that we have to be about organizing ourselves personally, organizing our family, organizing our community, fighting for our schools, fighting for a place in the marketplace, to have businesses. And then if we do that, we can be sure that we're going to be making some progress, even though there may be opposition. Right. But if we sit back and think we know what's happening and we don't know the systems that are worked against us all every day and every way. My grandfather was murdered 50 years after his birth. He was murdered in 1917. My father never really knew his grandfather because my father was 3. I never knew about this father until at 76, this grandfather. And then I realized that this man was a great man coming out of slavery with all the mess, the Ku Klux Klan, the first Ku Klux Klan. He survived that. His family survived it. They were able to build. And then here comes another birth of the Ku Klux Klan. In 1915, they had a movie called The Birth of the Nation, which was worshiping the Ku Klux Klan. And with this great movie, The Birth of the Nation, which was an epic movie of this Klan in white robes running around scaring black people and then lynching black people, that was a reality. My grandfather experienced it. But before he did that, he put in place powerful institutions, educational, church, Masonic order. He had children. He had farms. His brother and sisters had farms and whatnot. It is on that surviving the murder of the Klan. It is on that allowed me to be here, and allowed my brother to be here, and allowed my brother's sons to be a congressman in the United States, and another one, the younger one, the baby, to be a professor at Ohio State, and allowed me to go on to law school and go on to get a PhD, and my brother to get his masters and all kinds of things. That grandfather that was murdered, he had planted the seeds of growth of our family. And so we have to look at this history and see it, make it work for us, understanding that we can work with white folks, but be sure you keep your eyes open, because some of those white folks might say, wait a minute, your black folks is moving too fast. We're going to have to set you back a piece. And so we work with everybody who looks like they're moving in the right direction for us. You work especially with your own people because they have a sacred mission to link up with you. And then we just deal. We deal on the correct side of history. And we will prevail as we have been.
Thank you. And honestly, I just think Juneteenth is a celebration. People do need to read up on their history about Juneteenth because
it's a wake-up call.
It is a wake-up call because I feel as though everything that we did from June 19th, 1865 to 1875, we need to repeat that today in order to advance. And I also want to say this. I appreciate everyone who is listening. I appreciate everyone in the chat room. And you don't have to agree with everything people say or someone's opinion, but Dr. Leonard Jeffries is a certified scholar, and if you get up on my platform and you can say what you want in that live chat, and you are being very respectful and I appreciate your opinion, but if you cannot cite your sources, if you cannot give me point blank statistical facts on black history, on public policy, excuse me, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, please sit your ass all the way to hell down. Do not come up here thinking that you're educating someone, spilling out false information. You didn't send in no super chat. You don't educate yourself. You don't read. You don't know anything about public policy. You cannot tell Dr. Jeffries or myself or anybody else who may or may not know anything about public policy and about Black America and about American history. You got it all the way wrong. Dr. Jeffries, can you please tell people where they could follow you or, your organization that you're doing?
I just looked last night, my wife and I, at one of the presentations I made years ago. It was so fantastic. I'd like to put that in the hands of everybody. So you can go on your internet and you can put in Leonard Jeffries, Leonard, Jeffries, Jeffries, and just bring it up. And there's all kinds of Jeffries in America, Jeffries in Africa, Jeffries at Harvard, Jeffries raising up Malcolm X, Jeffries organizing the black mayors. And so just learn as much as possible. And the more you learn, the more you know you don't know. And so the more you know you have to do. And we are the great scholars. I got the PhD in the best white universities. I studied in Europe. But that doesn't make me. What makes me is I have a commitment to serve, and to serve first and foremost my people, and to serve them in a meaningful way in the name of the creator of the universe. And so I'm not only extending knowledge, I'm extending love. I love all of you. Don't know you, but love you. Have to serve you. Don't know where I can serve you. But if you contact me or contact what I've done, it will help to help me serve you